Ahoy, YouTube.
Hey, YouTube.
It's a day already.
Yeah, it is.
Hold on, I'm going to wait till we get recording here to complain about our
we are
situation.
A people in darkness. That's us.
Man, that should have been the title of our... Ahoy, everybody.
A people in darkness?
Yes.
We are a people in darkness today.
Actual recording is higher quality. Is it, though? Okay.
I hope, because
this looks bad.
Drugs, man.
Good morning, everybody.
What do you do on a day when people have given away your lights?
What do we do, baby?
Who gives away lights without
who gives away
checking
lights?
with people? I don't know.
Our light has been taken. The light has been taken from us.
It really is appropriate to Passion Week, as you know, we celebrated the triumphal entry, as it's often referred to, as Jesus enters
Friday
Jerusalem.
Yet? Should I wait to publish this till Friday?
And he has said to his people, "You will not have the light much longer."
He wasn't lying.
And here we are
without the light.
Actually, it's right here in front of me. 12:35. Then Jesus told them, "You're going to have the light just a little while longer. Walk while you have the light, before darkness overtakes you." He might have said, "Podcast while you have the light, before darkness overtakes you." Whoever walks in the dark does not know where they are going. Believe in the light while you have the light, so that you may become children of light.
Well,
and
our banner is still crooked too.
Oh, for crying out loud!
FYI.
It's because we're a people in darkness. We don't know
where the banner is.
Spiritual reality notwithstanding, that's highly applicable in a misapplication of that text today.
Yes, sir. And this is I will say most people...
I can do all things through a text taken out of context.
Most people listen to the podcast audioly. So...
we are hitting on all cylinders today.
I'm tired, boss.
We get the Stephen King quotes in here, which I don't know. I doubt those in the book. I don't know. What do I know about Stephen King?
R.I.P. Michael.
It was a good movie.
R.I.P. Michael Clark Duncan.
I did.
Anyway,
I don't really do Stephen King, but I did like that movie quite a bit.
There's a new one coming out with not Tom Holland.
A New Green Mile?
No, Tom Holland. Is he the one that played Loki?
That's Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston.
You got your Toms mixed up.
There's too many Toms.
Yeah.
Too many Toms in Hollywood. That's he's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Anyway, Tom Hiddleston.
Best Spider-Man. And I loved the other Spider-Man.
No, Tobey Maguire's the best Spider-Man.
No, but I love Tobey
Maguire. Anyway, there was
the three of them together. Golden.
There's a new movie coming out, and it's based on a Stephen King book, and it looks like a very uplifting something or other, which
until
is
everybody
strange
dies.
Until a giant clown comes out of the sewer. Anyway, for those listening.
That was very creepy. I actually use that a lot of times in illustrations.
It?
Yeah. Because
the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life. Ever.
Okay.
Clowns, man.
But clowns are just not scary until then. Now clowns are scary. But
children eating clowns is,
well, yes.
Terrifying.
But they win by
and the little balloon.
Kicking it to death. Talk about your
as you should.
Talk about your
this is my platform.
Anticlimactic.
Start kicking
thing.
More clowns.
It just it's so scary that they can't function, and then they kick it.
It wasn't the thing that it was all a nightmare or something. It wasn't really real or something. Yeah, anyway, for those who are listening,
I don't read Stephen King stuff. That's not.
I've never read a book.
Just stop. Period.
I never read a book. Full stop. Anyway.
This is why Shelly hates our podcast.
For those listening and not watching.
She doesn't really hate it. She actually listened last week.
Oh, good. We were here. We didn't have one last week. So,
yeah,
that's
right. It was her favorite one. Oh my goodness.
What's happening? Anyway, for those listening and not watching, we look different in not a major way, but not the tannish way that we
look different.
You look different. We typically, I know this is a little behind the scenes, hopefully it doesn't ruin the magic for you. We have
we have magic?
We have what are they called? There's lights, but they're specific kind of lights.
Well, they're not Klieg lights, right? They're not.
What are those called? Like photographers use them. They have a name.
Well, okay.
Something lights.
Right now they're
like
called
the big
Gone.
The big ones that look like they have a screen in front of them. We have those.
Gone, baby, gone.
And they help. Because for a while when we were doing the podcast, we kept getting notifications that, the frame rate was low and blah, blah, blah. And it was a lighting issue. And so we got these lights and they've worked wonderfully. And now I see that they work better than I thought they did, even because we look pasty.
I'm very white, but I actually look darker than you.
I look clear. Larry's not white. He's clear. Because I'm like leaning
I
forward
don't-
and I'm right in front of this
It's
light.
kind of astonishing because I don't have
If
the
I'm back
Mexican
here, I'm
heritage that
okay.
you have.
If I'm back here, I'm okay. But then you can't hear me. So anyway, our lights were stolen, given away carelessly. No, I'm just kidding, but kind of not.
You know who you are.
I will find you. Anyway, we will probably get them back, and if we don't, we'll get new lights eventually. But for today, or for those of you who are
We're having
watching,
fun, but we are hot garbage. There's really no
Whoa.
question about it.
whoa,
Don't listen to this podcast. It's
that
terrible.
escalated
It's
quickly.
the worst podcast ever.
Lord save us.
I don't know if that was our smoothest transition, but it was.
It's what it's
it
going to
was
be
very
today.
to the point.
Anyway, so if you're watching and not listening, that's why we look different. If you're listening and not watching, you don't care, so you can just,
You're like,
you know,
shut
like,
up,
why
and
am
move
I still
on.
listening? Anyway,
If this is your first time, goodbye.
if you're still here after all we've done so far, we appreciate you walking through the trenches with us.
Welcome to the jungle.
Okay.
We got fun and games.
Do we? You're gonna die.
You know, we are kind of all over the map as
Oh
far as pop
gosh,
culture things in general.
that's true.
And I have had "Lonely as the Night" from Billy Squier stuck in my head
Well,
on just total repeat. I don't know enough of the lyrics to the song to actually have the song singing in my head, so it's the chorus over and over and over and over. Since I walked into Harding's yesterday
was it playing?
and Billy Squier is playing, and I'm like, what has happened to my life that Billy Squier is now grocery store music? But they play a
Oh,
lot of
They play a lot
heavy
of
stuff in there.
well,
stuff.
even in Meyer, they were playing 90s stuff, and I was like, no,
Yeah, and I,
this isn't
and
okay.
I go to Rural King and they're playing Christian rap. So
Oh,
I'm
well.
like, okay, mixed with Dwight Yoakam. So
George
there's
was
that.
George was singing Neon Moon the other day, so that,
Was he?
I'm like, I like you.
All right.
I like you.
How old is he again?
94. 94. That was after he took a bite of milk chocolate and said, man, if this was dark, it'd really hit the spot.
Just-
Who are you? Who
Yeah.
are you?
You've slid into your ASMR voice now.
Welcome. No, that would be like whispering like this. Are you uncomfortable
Well-
yet? Anyway, it was Palm Sunday this past weekend.
It was. Yes, it was.
I also praised my child because he really got into those
Good.
leaves. He had the double leaf going. I was proud of him. Anyway,
Yeah, we missed a timing issue in there that this song that we used to start the service.
it was a very short parade.
Yeah, it was a longer song than we normally would do for that.
Well, I
Hosanna,
also feel like
Praises
the
Rising
kids
is a really good song.
I also feel like the kids usually go around more than once.
They went around twice.
They went one way and then they went the
Yeah,
other
that's
way,
what
and
they
that was
usually
it. Oh, is that usually what they do?
Yeah,
I
that's
usually
what
thought they
they
went around
usually do.
twice. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we were still
So we
singing and
meant
playing a long
to-
time after they were doing that.
Shelley meant to have them start later. I meant to point out to her that it's a longer song, so we should have them start later, which she thought about, but not at the right time. And so by the time we got to the chorus where they actually say Hosanna, kids are gone. So
Well, we're real slick here every day of the week.
yes, we are.
Anyway,
So
Palm Sunday. It was good.
welcome to the slick operation.
It was good, and now we can all go home.
Good party, no lights. We go home.
No lights.
So,
Anyway, well, we are here.
so we've hit 90s, 70s,
The greatest mix of
late
70s,
50s, early
80s, 90s, and
60s.
today.
So we got all the pop culture. in here.
Delilah.
And I'm fighting a sinus infection, so
Fun.
also.
And I heard
sounding
about
like
your
garbage
pukey
there as well.
grandson.
Oh my! Do we want to talk about that?
No, I'm just
'Cause
saying I heard about it, and
I-
I'm sorry.
I will.
I
Just
prayed
say
for you.
The poor child. He was just feeling rough. He was feeling rough the whole time. And I said, or Shelley, one of us said, "Is your tummy hurt? You think you're gonna throw up?" And he's like, "I don't know." Yeah, I think I am.
That's fair.
And then he took off running. And he got to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I was really proud of him.
Yeah.
He got from the living room all the way through the house to the bathroom. And if he had been there 1 second sooner, he could have gotten the lid up. He did not.
It's like the Morgan Freeman voice, but he did not.
And then the child delirium that he had. he did what he did on top of the lid,
Mhm.
aiming for the toilet
Right. You can't blame him.
twice.
Okay.
The second time, I'm like, wow, what are you doing? But we'll be repainting our bathroom. So
Lovely.
It was.
There's few things
and
that
then
I would.
guess he threw up at home the next day. Like,
Was it like a Linda? Was it like a Linda
times.
Blair issue here?
I don't know, man. I'm like, why are you still feeding the kid? I don't know what's going on.
Stop like feeding him.
If you don't feed him, nothing comes out. But it was. But I guess he really didn't have anything but a protein shake after that, and it did a number on him. Then, so he hadn't thrown up in like 13 hours. Ethan said. They bring him over to our house because they had to literally walks in, goes to the bathroom. I said, "Well, how long has it been since you threw up?" And he's like, "I don't know." Whoop. I'm like,
about 30 seconds.
Wow. So Ethan's still in talking to Shelly, and I'm like, he just, what?
It's like one of those things you flip. It's been 0 days since our last incident.
Right. Exactly. It was a mess. But
well, I'm sorry.
Is it just me, or is it excessively warm in here?
It's dark for sure.
Dark and warm. It's like we are in the jungle. So anyhow.
Anyway. It's thrown off our whole thing.
You've thrown off my groove.
You've thrown off my groove. I'm sorry. You've thrown off the Emperor's groove. Why do we even have that lever? Anyway.
We're a mess.
Yikes. It's Holy Week.
And
thank goodness.
And as you glibly cried out before,
Lord, save us.
And
I didn't mean for it to be glibly.
In our current state of mental confusion, I'm pretty sure it's hard for anything not to be so.
I didn't mean it.
But the reality of the week is that being Holy Week and Sunday being Palm Sunday, we have taken a break from our Deuteronomy series, which apparently we did on our podcast last week. We took a break from it.
That was me. I couldn't turn my head to the left.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
There was something.
Yep.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, Stacy was dead last week, and now she's not, and so that's a plus.
But I am not Jesus.
Now she's just mostly dead. So, as we now we both just looked at because we have no lights. Right. But anyway,
where are you, Mexican heritage?
I don't have any. So as we are taking a break from that, we're working through this Holy Week or Passion Week, and today being Thursday, Maundy Thursday for those who celebrate. Our church will be doing a Passover Seder celebration. This
smells
evening,
real good in there.
Our Messianic Passover Seder. And with us, as I've said before, that was supposed to be a one-time deal, and it has become an annual tradition for close to 20 years now.
Nice.
I don't remember exactly. I'd have to go back and do some research to figure out when we actually started it. But it's come with us through a couple of buildings and multiple generations. So as because you were still in high school when we started doing it. So
the good old days,
back
20 years ago, back in the 1900s,
right before your son was 90 years old. And so it's kind of astonishing that it has become such a popular thing, because it's not like we have this fantastic, authentic presentation of things. We try to be as reasonably authentic and reasonably kosher as we can. Actual,
it's not a kosher kitchen.
Actual Jewish practice would say this is, certainly not Passover kosher, right, at least. But we do cook authentic Jewish food, and we follow the Haggadah from I think it's Jews for Jesus is where we got it. Anyway, and we kind of use a video to lead us through it, which is sometimes a little awkward. It would be better if I just led us through it. But at the same time, I think there's something to having a Jewish family, seeing it in that family setting and walking through it, and it kind of puts us in mind of a lot of things. The pictures of Messiah from the time of the Exodus, that are still there in the celebration of those who don't recognize Jesus as Messiah, and yet still celebrate things that point to Jesus as Messiah. without without acknowledging that. At the same time, while we're doing that, it gives us as New Testament believers a clearer, deeper insight, I think, into the nature of our remembrance celebration, the communion, the Lord's Supper, to see what actually was Jesus doing within reason, because the Seder, the order that we use today, is a little different than what he would have before the destruction of the temple and all that. But the same idea is they're following through the same basic elements of it, without the same Haggadah that we use, the telling of it. So anyway, that's tonight, and then tomorrow night we have our contemplative Good Friday service. Another thing that is outside of our normal wheelhouse. So we really like being a free church or a low church, where we don't have a lot of what would be recognized as liturgical things, elements in what we do. It's nice to have seasons like this where we do have something that's more like that. With this contemplative service, we read through the gospel accounts of the crucifixion, in different parts of it, and some of the epistles, and connecting it, and Isaiah's prophecies about the suffering servant. And so it's there's no sermon. It's not a free form service at all. We follow a pretty strict order. We all are reading and praying together on these prescribed prayers, very much outside of our normal tradition, or our normal, if you will, liturgy. I think because it's not normal for us, it makes it fresh. It's something that people from more of a high church background might recognize the vibe, the dynamic a little more than what we do. But it's not like a tenebrae service, a service of darkness. We haven't done that. But it has a very, I don't know, how would you describe it? Kind of a heavy tone.
Very
because
heavy,
it's focused on the crucifixion.
I think especially in contrast, knowing if you frequent our church, I think it feels especially heavy because of the contrast between our typical services. As
evangelical Protestants, in a Baptistic vein, we have a very, very different dynamic from that. Not like what you might see in I don't know, seeker sensitive churches, or what a lot of times people will call mega churches. Not like that, but we've got the guitars and drums and all that kind of stuff in the service. It's well lit, not well enough lit for me. I like things
not like right now.
Not like now. But I always prefer more light. But we're in an older church, which I think it's very fitting that we do it in the St. John's campus, the historic St. John's campus, which is an older German church.
100 years old, right?
Yeah, 1898 is when they built that building. Congregation is a little older, but that's when that building was built. Stained glass windows, so you don't have a lot of light.
Just the big organ and the feel of it, even though you're not playing the organ. But.
Right, but it's it's very stripped down, and it intentionally ends with the darkness of the crucifixion, without connecting to the hope of the resurrection, to help us to enter into that, what the disciples are going through in those intervening days.
That's one of my favorite parts of that service is ending with that, and then everybody leaves kind of at their own pace, and it's just silent, and it's uncomfortable, and it's supposed to be
right.
And it's impossible it's impossible not to be reflective when you're in that situation, because I think especially today, we're used to everything kind of moving quickly and being loud. There's no silence.
And comfortable.
Right.
Right. And I think that's one of the great maladies of the modern church is folks in putting together church services, even church facilities, we think about our comfort, which is not the purpose of church.
Right.
And so if you come into a comfortable building, climate controlled and all that kind of stuff,
you get a
sit
coffee,
in a comfortable seat,
yeah.
right? And today, especially,
Right.
you know, you have a coffee, which, you know, honestly, I wish we didn't have that as part of what we are. You know, it's in the culture. I'm not going to, you know, tell people and post ushers at the door saying no coffee in the sanctuary or in the, you know, strictly speaking, the nave as you would come in. But we're not going to do that.
Right.
But I think there is something to it when you say this place is other. This is holy. It's set apart to God. We should, and same thing, we have this come as you are vibe. So you might come to church dressed like I am now, just jeans and whatever. And it doesn't make you more spiritual to dress a particular kind of way.
Right.
But there is something to the historic habit of putting on your Sunday best, of, you know, being on your best behavior, coming and being, if you will, slightly uncomfortable, you know, having to teach the kids to sit still, all these kinds of things there that you would see in traditional things, because it sets this time apart. So you're singing songs, listening to songs that are different than what you're listening to on your stereo in the car. Now, these days, that's not what happens. These days, you come in and you're jamming to a song you just were listening to on the radio on the way in.
Right.
You got your coffee that, you know, maybe you brought your Starbucks or Big B in with you or whatever, or in Fusco if you're in the Sawyer area. You're wearing the clothes that you would wear to hang out with your friends and all those kinds of things. Not trying to condemn any of that, but there is something to be said for a church environment that when you come, it's different. There's a transcendent feel. I remember when I was in Chicago measuring some choir robes at a predominantly black church. When I say predominantly, I mean like I was the only white person in the community at that point when I came in, which was fantastic experience for another podcast. But anyway, fantastically uncomfortable, but fantastic. So I go in there and there are signs on the door that say no gum. No,
nice.
You know, this is, or something to the effect of this is the house of the Lord, you know, no gum, no food, no drink, no talking. You know, you come in, you prepare for worship before you get into the main hall, the sanctuary. And when you're out in the lobby or narthex or foyer, whatever you want to call it, you stop talking because you're coming into the house of God and you need to prepare yourself. That's not a tradition I've ever been part of or been around, but there's something powerful to that. There's a significance.
Well, and that I think is, I know this isn't necessarily what we're supposed to be talking about today, but why not? I think that also sets you apart for others when you step back into the real world. If you go to Cracker Barrel on a Sunday at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, you're going to see all the folk who are coming from church and they're dressed to the nines. And you know they just came from church and there's this big family and they just came from church and you look at them because they're dressed amazingly and they look great and they are still in that mode where you can just feel that they've been praising and you feel it coming off
especially
of them.
folks from predominantly black churches.
Right.
And you get an African American family.
They look great. They're great. You feel it coming off of them.
And that doesn't, let me be very straight about this. This does not necessarily equate with godliness. It doesn't mean that everybody that's doing that is an actual believer or is living the life or whatever. But there is something to it. There's a vibe. There's a feel that this is a special day and a special time.
Right.
And then I think we've lost that in the evangelical world.
So that's why it's so strange when they go out into the world after their church service or to have lunch or whatever, that they look different from everybody else there.
Right. Yeah. And truthfully, that is so not how things go today in evangelical Protestant world.
Yeah.
Right. And so we do, like we work to make, and I was guilty of this at one point when we were starting the church, to a certain extent. I wasn't going as far as what we might see in a lot of circles, but I'm like, well, people feel disenfranchised. So we need to make this accessible. That's not the picture we have in Scripture.
Right.
The church was not designed for unbelievers. The church is for the church. The church is for believers, and unbelievers are welcome for sure. And in our day, we've worked so hard at the all are welcome part that we forgot that we are to be holy, and this place is to be holy, not because the building is special or holy, but because it's set apart for God's purposes in this time and place.
Well, that kind of goes on with the core reality that you had here this past Sunday. I'm just looking at it now that Jesus, good job, that Jesus did not come to be popular, but to take God's wrath in our place.
That's right.
I'm surprised I can read that this far without my glasses.
I'm very impressed.
Wow.
See, you're very young. Anyway, that is exactly the point. So when we're designing church services in general, if we're designing them for popularity, to make them comfortable to people, then we're appealing to the flesh. Mm-hmm. And whatever we sow to the flesh, we're of course going to reap of the flesh. That, so we have people that might enjoy church but never know Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so the reality of the church gathering is it is to be the gathering of God's people, of believers, recognizing, and the scripture is clear, that even in such a gathering, there will be unbelievers. And it's great to bring unbelievers to church. However, it's not, if you go into a Jewish home at Passover, they're not trying to make it appeal to you as a Gentile.
Right.
Hey, we want to, let's kind of, this whole, bitter herbs thing and kosher food, that's a little tough for my Gentile friends.
Here's a cheeseburger.
Come in, have a cheeseburger, have a bacon burger.
Right.
They're not doing that because it's not for you.
Right.
You're welcome to come and enter into this in many cases, but understand this wasn't created for you. This was created for a special purpose to point to the God of heaven. And when we approach churches in a way that, our goal is to make them popular, let's get more people in. And we use very pragmatic type language that, we want to get them in so they can hear the truth. Well, the evangelism in the scripture is almost always, with very few exceptions, person to person. It's almost always in a smaller group setting. When you see Paul in the book of Acts, he's going into synagogues and he's reasoning with people. But the actual impact and conversion most of the time is Paul talking to Lydia, Philip talking to the Ethiopian. We see these individual conversations, Jesus and Nicodemus, Jesus and the woman at the well. And he does have big sermons where he talks to the crowds. But when the crowds start coming, when it starts to get popular, then Jesus says hard truth and everybody scatters. Right. We need in our churches to say more hard truths. So when Jesus comes into Jerusalem, and we looked at it in John 12 this week. So when we look at John 12 and specifically verses 12 to 19 is where we see this in that particular gospel. Everybody's out there shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna, which, as we used for our title, essentially means Lord save us. It was a colloquial term of praise that came from the Hebrew meaning save. And so as you're crying out to the king or the conquering hero, save us, or you have saved us, this idea of blessing us through your victories, through your protection and your strength. Well, with Jesus, they're crying out, Lord, save us, because they think the king is coming in.
Right.
What they don't realize is the real king is actually coming in, but he's not doing it the way you think. He's not here. And we've heard this approached a bunch of times, just the beauty of Zechariah's prophecy being fulfilled and the king riding in on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. And so he's coming humble and gentle, and yet he is the King of all kings, the one who will judge the earth, the one who will appear in this holy presence, whose name is faithful and true, and a sword comes from his mouth to slay the nations. That's the king that here is riding in on a donkey. And he will save them, save us, save those who believe. But he's going to do it at the end of the week on the cross, where he is, Chuck read for us from Psalm 118, where this comes from. And the week before, Gary read to us from Psalm 90, where they're praising God as their dwelling place. You've been our dwelling place for all generations, and that God is this shelter. And that's exactly what Jesus does. He comes and he saves us by being the shelter, the umbrella in a sense, or a shield, our defender, as the wrath of God is poured out on sin and sinner alike. But it falls on Jesus, and all who are under him, all who are in Christ, are saved from this. They're bypassed. So God saves us from God by putting the Son of God, God himself, on the cross to absorb this. So God is our dwelling place, our shield, our defender, our refuge from his wrath against sin, because we are his enemies. So while they're shouting all these glorious things and he's super popular in this moment, they don't get it. He didn't come to get their praises. That was inevitable. In fact, in another gospel, he says that if they were to stop, that the very stones would cry out, because it was the time for him to be praised. Right. But his purpose for coming was to seek and to save the lost, to save sinners, which he would do through the betrayal and through the kangaroo court mock trial fake stuff that's going on here, where he is framed. Can we say that? Is that right? Railroaded, and falsely accused, falsely convicted, wrongly executed. And that was always God's plan. Right. We see in Isaiah 53, it was God's will to crush him, because otherwise he would have to crush us. And so in his mercy, God sends his son while we were yet sinners to absorb the wrath that is intended for us. So 2 Corinthians 5:21, the one who knew no sin became sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God. So as we celebrate this Holy Week and all the events that go through it, my hope and my prayer is that we will have enough darkness in our celebration to recognize the weight of this, to know just what we're talking about, that God's wrath against sin and sinner is inevitable. It is right and it is just, but God in his mercy sent Christ as an atoning sacrifice for us, not to be popular, but to take God's wrath in our place, so that God could remain just in punishing sin and also be the one who justifies in his mercy and his love. So the full picture of who God is on display this week. And I pray that we as Christ followers would not shy away from it, that we wouldn't get so caught up in bunnies and chocolate that we forget what we're actually celebrating on Easter Sunday, as we come to that this week, that this resurrection, and I would invite anybody to come and join us for it. If not here, find a church that will celebrate the truth of God's word. And this resurrection of Christ this is our hope. Mm-hmm. He was raised for our justification. He died for our sins, but he was raised for our justification. In other words, as in his sacrifice, as he took God's wrath, he took our place. His resurrection shows clearly that God's wrath has been appeased. Mm-hmm. There is no wrath left for those who are in Jesus Christ. Romans 8:1, there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
Okay, we will stop there for today. I was going to tell people to, join us on Sunday if you're in the area, or you can even join us online if you're not. So, if you are in the area,
it's not the same thing, but it is something.
It is something. Also, feel free to join us for our Good Friday service. It is at the St. John's Church here in Three Oaks, and it is very different.
It's relatively short.
Yep, very short.
Which is good because there are no bathrooms in that facility. But
odd. But thank you guys for joining us, and happy Easter.
Yes, and indeed.
He is risen indeed.
He is risen indeed.
Thank you, guys. We will catch you next week. Bye, YouTube.
Well, we eventually got to a thing, right?